We're going, there we go. We're just going to wait a couple minutes for folks to trickle in. Welcome to our Faith in Action event. Actually, this is our general slide, but as we trickle in, it looks like we may have a crowd. Well, let's actually introduce ourselves in the chat. How about that? I'll introduce myself since I'm speaking. My name is Natalia Rudiak, and I am with ReImagine Appalachia, and you will hear a lot about our organization in the few minutes to come. And actually, maybe our speakers can introduce themselves. And then if you are joining us as a guest, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat with your name, faith, community, organization, and why you decided to join us today. Jeff, want to go first?
Okay. Jeff Allen, West Virginia Council of Churches. And I'm,
yeah.
Was I supposed to say more? Or?
No. Mitch, I'll call on you all. Mitch.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Mitch Hescox. I'm President and CEO of the Evangelical Environmental Network, and I live in York County, Pennsylvania currently, but I grew up in the middle of Appalachia in Western Pennsylvania and in Cambria County, Pennsylvania. So that's why I'm here today and happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm Alan Johnson. It's good to see my friend Mitch. Hey, how are you, buddy? I live in Pocahontas County, West Virginia. I'm with Christians for the Mountains and some other groups.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Kathy Rabofsky, Development Associate with Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light, or PAIPL. It's great to be with you this morning. I'm sorry, I have construction in my house right now, so I will largely stay muted unless I'm speaking as Natalia had invited me to speak later. Thanks so much. Oh, and we're joining, PAIPL is joining because we support ReImagine Appalachia's work in creating jobs and a sustainable environment for folks, because that's part of being a spiritual person. You cannot be prepared to be spiritually complete if you're not in a sustainable position that will support you and your family in the long term.
Happy. Robin?
Hi, it's Robin Blakeman, she, her, and I am with West Virginia Interfaith Power and Light, steering committee member there. I also work with a nonprofit called Energy Efficient West Virginia, and a resident of Huntington and a PCUSA ordained minister.
Wonderful. And for those of us who just joined, I see the chat is filling up. You know, it's hard to do two things at the same time, especially here. Awesome. Yes, please continue to introduce yourselves in the chat, your name, faith, community, organization, and why you decided to join us today. Lovely. I love to see all these folks here. All right. Well, we'll just get started. You saw our beautiful introduction slide, hopefully. So we are ReImagine Appalachia. We're a coalition of many different leaders and organizations that are dedicated to creating shared prosperity in a 21st century Appalachia. And today I'll be talking a little bit about our group. We'll be introducing the model that we have been working on to help reinvigorate our communities, and we'll have a number of speakers who just introduce themselves. So then we'll discuss and see where we want to go from here. All right, so I have so much information and I'm going to try to be brief. I mean, when you talk about economics and the history and what we need in Appalachia, I mean, clearly there are graduate degrees on this topic. So I'm trying to condense it in a few slides. So as we know, we have been providing raw materials for the prosperity of the nation, and our people and our land and our economy has suffered over time due to that depletion. We, as ReImagine Appalachia, we came together to create a plan, economic plan for ReImagine, or for Appalachia, that is all about good jobs, ensuring genuine opportunities who may have lost their jobs, fossil fuel jobs, creating pathways for low-wage workers into good careers, and making sure that our federal investments are guided by local communities. I'll briefly go through this. We came together in 2020 to create this vision. We developed a blueprint on this vision. You can actually go on our website. We have job impact studies on what a clean economy, a sustainable economy would do for Pennsylvania, for Ohio, for West Virginia. It's really amazing. And we have specific studies on specific things like clean manufacturing or jobs in natural infrastructure. Again, you could go and check it out and read to your heart's content. But a lot of the reason we did this is because we knew that whether it was now or 5 years from now, there would be national climate change legislation and there would be infrastructure legislation that we've been talking about for years, if not decades, that we need some rejuvenation of federal funding for our infrastructure. This would have significant implications for Appalachia, but until this point, a lot of these conversations around the environment and what we need have been driven by people on the East and West Coast. And honestly, just look at how much money has been dedicated to rail to understand that point. The vast majority is in the Northeast corridor. So again, we're trying to change these conversations. Let's see, in 2020, we went to Washington. We spent an enormous amount of time advocating for ambitious federal climate and infrastructure legislation. We, again, bring together diverse stakeholders, including our faith leaders here, labor groups, environmental, business, racial justice, elected officials at all levels of government. We had over 100 elected officials endorse our plan, including a number of city councils and county commissioners across our states. We are very proud of the fact that we had a $1.2 trillion national infrastructure bill that was signed into law around a lot of our priorities that we were advocating for: broadband access, particularly in rural areas, clean water, clean energy, electric grid renewal, transportation, even plugging orphan wells, which we have a lot of across our region that can provide many, many good jobs to help our land here. So we'd like to think that we had a lot to do with that. So now it's 2022. What are we doing now? We're doing continued advocacy for another $500 million investment with things that are critical for our communities. And we're trying to target the existing funds to our communities in Appalachia. There's obviously huge pots of money out there, and we want to have a say in what happens. And this is where we need your help. We want to work with what your vision is for a healthy, sustainable community and how we can work together to implement this vision. Whoop. Okay, so there is a model, the ReImagine Your Community model, on how to do all of this. We have been working with the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania and a group called ReImagine Beaver County. They are part of our coalition members. And years ago, a few years ago, they led a visioning process for sustainable economic development. This has spread to 7 communities in southwestern Pennsylvania, and we are adapting this toolkit and model for communities across our states. Yes, and actually, I don't know, Annie or Mala, if you want to drop in our blog that talks about that. But I am going to show a video. It's easy for me to talk about it, but it's, well, if I can figure out how to do this. I would like to show a video that highlights this process. So let me see if I can actually make that happen. We may need a miracle. So with all of you in the room, I think that can happen. Okay. Of course, it plays these dumb ads. Okay.
We're delighted that you're here.
Can everybody hear this if I play it?
And I'm delighted to be here.
Our region
Yep.
is poised for growth.
So tonight we welcome you to this interactive gathering for creating a new vision of forward-looking alternatives to economic development in Beaver County.
And we want to give voice to Beaver County residents who believe a healthy and truly sustainable community can only happen when we move beyond a fossil fuel energy intensive way of life.
The 8 most expensive words in business is because that's the way we've always done it.
There's a saying here in Beaver County, if you keep doing what we're doing, we're going to keep getting what we're getting.
30% of the people aged 20 to 29 will move within a given 5-year period. Only 4% of people over 65 will move within a given 5-year period. So you can see that if you're going to draw people to the area, you really have to focus on what young people want.
We do want a better environment to live in.
We want the idea generation from the younger kids.
Clean energy jobs already employ twice as many people as the fossil fuel industry in Pennsylvania.
Innovation is the profitable implementation of ideas. It creates growth, it increases productivity, economic wealth, it avoids stagnation, it reduces waste and environmental damages, and provides for better goods and services at a less expensive cost.
The problem and the key word is transition. And what is the best strategy for transition?
Diversity in industry is the way to build a resilient community.
What we really need is a green and clean energy industrial policy.
So looking forward means exploring green alternatives to energy and the diverse businesses that support them.
Okay, so we were a little all over the map here.
We're going to start with farming.
We have 1, 2, 3 hemp farms, industrial and recreational.
Neighborhood grocery stores,
Large greenhouses.
We have 2 organic farms that we're going to support.
a delivery truck with fresh produce.
An urban organic composting center.
These all create jobs.
Take the vacant lots, put in a community garden,
Community gardens.
and that would get good fresh food in places that don't have a grocery store.
We're also going to support a food scraps processing plant. It's the anaerobic digester. Is that, Mario, is that what it is?
We wanted to promote entrepreneurship.
We're going to build a pervious concrete plant.
These textiles that we manufacture can be sustainable materials, and we could use a lot of the alternative energies for being able to develop them.
We thought maybe we would start just with a solar array that powers the county.
With the hills, we think we have a pretty good place for having wind power.
Solar roofs on any new building.
LED lights,
Converting all lighting to LEDs.
electric car chargers.
We also need more recycling centers because we don't have enough, and we also need places for bulk trash.
Warehousing.
Art co-ops.
We need more parks.
We have this wonderful, wonderful resource here called Raccoon State Park. We really should be utilizing this.
We need access to the river. People like to do kayaking
River tourism.
and swimming.
More swimming pools.
Recreation is a huge, huge business.
We need air monitors to control the polluted air.
We want to encourage Shell to put money into setting up a filtering system in the Ohio River to begin cleaning it up.
We agreed with the other people about taking advantage of our rivers, putting bike trails.
Bike trails.
Bike lanes on all the roads.
The improvement of bike routes.
Bike trails.
Bike trails.
And in addition to the bike trails, bike repair shops, because they're going to get flat tires.
Also, we're hoping then that there would be a very coordinated sort of mass transit system.
Employing a river taxi.
Putting commuter train in.
We are going to have a big paddle wheel boat on the river and bring tourism in, along with a new commuter train service that's going to run a circuit from East Liverpool, Ohio, all the way around the communities and do like a commuter route and then go all the way into the city. We need a regional planning process where we look at the whole entire community and we decide this is what we want, this is how it's going to be, and make this a truly livable community.
So I think that's those are our wild and not so wild ideas.
hopefully we can kind of take these ideas and move forward with them. We have a lot of great things to start rolling with.
Nothing that just sustains and stays the same does sustain. You have to continually grow and change and move.
One of the things that we cannot fall prey to is the idea that the market will solve everything, because essentially, market drives on greed, and we need to rise above that.
Mario told me it was okay to think big, so that's why we're...
Oh. Okay. How about that? We excited yet? All right, so I'm gonna share back to this presentation really quickly. Okay, now I need to somehow get back to, oh Lord. Okay, here we go. Back to the presentation. See, again, I could show you these photos, but not the same, right? Okay, so why faith communities? I'm not going to say this because we have our leaders here to say this, but I think we
should explore a few solutions.
Sorry.
And undermine your message.
There we go. Always technical difficulties. Okay. So that took away the momentum. We have put out a toolkit working with our previous partners, and our toolkit, which is at this blog post, which we'll post in the chat, talks about how to create this initial process. And that's why we want to have this conversation. We are looking to create a support network of folks interested in leading this process in your community. And here's the question: can you center your faith, your house of worship, to make your neighborhood, village, town, city, county, region a better place, a more sustainable place? And would you like to help us? Can you help us recruit community members who would be interested? We have a Google form that you can sign up for, and we're hoping to do a follow-up session to this a couple weeks from today, so we can kind of go into the details. I'm very quickly going to go through this, but I want to mention that this model goes beyond visioning. Eventually, we as ReImagine would like to work with some of our partners to potentially fundraise to move through a process that mirrors what the League of Women Voters have done. And again, I'm very quickly going to go through this, and we'll send out this PowerPoint later. But what the League of Women Voters have done is they have worked with these communities to undertake economic impact analyses of these projects. And they did that with an organization consulting firm called Downstream Strategies. They literally have looked at the number of jobs some of these projects will support, the wages, the electricity bill savings, et cetera, and looked at what the best projects out of some of these visioning processes have been. They're also currently holding a number of workshops around planning and financing and managing construction. And I will say that the Indiana County Task Force is actually working with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency on a grant around food supply chain. So it is a real possibility. And as we know, there's $1.2 trillion out there that is available for our communities, but we want to have a say on how it's spent and how it affects us. So here's our information. Again, here's our form, and we hope that we can work together to make this a reality. So I'm going to stop here. Yeah, great. We'll start passing this along. I see Jeffrey first, so I'm going to pass it over to you.
So first, I just want to say I've been having a series of migraines alternating with insomnia this week. So I've written everything down. I hope it's coherent, because it seemed coherent when I was writing it down, but I'm hoping it still is. I served my first 2 churches in Keystone, Northback, and Keystone and North Fork in McDowell County, the poorest county in West Virginia. In fact, of the 10 worst economically distressed towns in West Virginia, 2 or 3 of them were located in McDowell County, and Keystone was one of those. The faith community is often one of the last institutions left in the community. The school is gone, the post office is gone, well, the stores might be gone, but generally there are local faith communities still there. On the other hand, North Fork and Keystone, where I had my 2 small churches, each town had 6 to 7 churches each. So for a combined population of about 1,200 persons, there are about 12 to 14 churches. Local congregations were still a force in that community, and still a place where you could build, where social capital existed, where networks existed, where the ability to reach out and gather the community still existed. The faith community has a lot to offer. It can offer values about what kind of economy looks out for people. It can give voice to those values, particularly when those values are in danger, are being left out of the discussion. Often in economic community development discussions, the church was left out, or the faith community was left out, and a lot of the people who are going to be impacted were being left out. So the church is often the only sort of counterweight, the only sort of long-term institution that can provide a counterweight to government or to large corporations. So it plays a very, very important role. And lifting up those voices is very, very important. And of course, local congregations, in addition to playing a leadership role, can provide space and other support for meetings. The big question in all of this, of course, is where to start. And the toolkit has been used in other places and provides some pretty good guidance as to where to begin. Now, I think the toolkit is, the best way to think of it is like your grandmother's recipes, for a really incredibly good dish. There may not be exact measurements for this recipe. It might just say a pinch here or a handful there. But what's important is that you need to know the ingredients of what goes into making that successful dish. The toolkit provides guidance and sort of a checklist of ingredients that you need to make sure that things are good before you start an endeavor like this. Now, depending upon the situation or just personal taste, you may want more of one part or of another, and that's okay. Every situation is going to be different. And I think the second thing the toolkit offers is connection to and examples of what other organizations are doing. And that can sort of broaden your view of what's possible and also provide some context. Don't underestimate those contacts by any means. Explore them, look through them. There might be someone in one of those organizations that you want to invite to your meeting to provide inspiration, guidance, or just some basic knowledge. So the toolkit is a great place to start, to begin to organize this effort. It can be used as a rallying point for the community, and it's just a great way to get organized. And so take a look at it. I want to echo Molly in saying that please consider filling out the form. I think this will be a great strategic process, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jeff. Really appreciate it. I see Mitch next down on the line, so you're up.
All righty, I'm going to share my screen and get us going here today. So let's work on that and go for it. So again, I get the pleasure of having my part of my screen be blocked by the good old logo from, there it goes. So let's start the slideshow and we'll be ready to go, hopefully. All right, well, first off, as was mentioned, I'm Mitch Hescox, and I grew up in Pennsylvania, still live in Pennsylvania, spent some time around the country. but like Jeff, and one of the things is I grew up in Blandburg, Cambria County, Pennsylvania. I was just there just a couple weeks ago to visit the graves of my parents. My dad was a coal miner. My grandfathers were coal miners. Back in the 50s, Blandburg was a thriving town of several thousand people. Today is probably less than 200, maybe right around 100. Every town needs to have hope in life. And we believe in the church, especially my evangelical world, that motivating the church and helping the church to understand that the church should be engaged in these issues is really important. And one of the things I wanted to share with you today is that, why EEN supports this toolkit is just for that reason, is to get the life of the churches involved and churches to working together. But some churches, are, even my evangelical world is kind of different, and you need to give them a solid reason. And if jobs aren't enough and creating a new economy isn't enough, maybe providing help for children's health is one way to really engage the people, because we need action together. We need to bring communities together to solve this problem, because it does take each and every one of us. We have major problems out there. Just as one example, that's something that EEN works on a lot, is this is the oil and gas threat map for Pennsylvania. This is where it shows that there are, literally, 200,000 kids that go to school within an oil and gas facility. Just one instances of poor quality air that's been abused. And that lists for West Virginia as well. Those little dots are the schools, and the yellow ones are the oil and gas facilities. And they're a big problem. And they're one of the areas that we have to engage our church to really get together. And I just want to ask you a question as we start looking at this toolkit and how to organize our faith communities, our churches. Maybe it's a different strokes, maybe it's working together. But I'd like to ask you, what's worth defending? And I'd like you just to look at this. This is a little minute-long video that asks that question.
Is there sound, Mitch?
Yeah, there was sound, but
yeah, you might want to press the share screen button again, and when it says share screen, do share sound. Yeah.
Yes, I just did that, and I thought I had it set up, but it went off on me. I must have clicked it twice. So let's go forward again.
No worries.
Hopefully you hear the sound now.
Yes, we do.
I wanted to share that video because I really believe that ReImagine Appalachia and EEN share the same mission and vision. and that's to create the sustainable world with sustainable jobs and a healthy future for all people. And one of the reasons the toolkit is so powerful is we have to reiterate to people that we are not helpless or we are not hopeless. But the best way to take advantage of those things is to get together. Depending on your faith, we're empowered as Christians by the Holy Spirit to be Jesus Christ for this world. And I can think of no better way of doing that than rebuilding our towns, for caring for our children's health, and building this sustainable future for all. So we urge you to take advantage of the toolkit, to sign up. EEN will do whatever we can to support you and any of our evangelical churches even here, or getting more evangelicals to be on board to helping us create that better future. So I just wanted to thank you for being here. Thank ReImagine Appalachia for allowing me to speak today. And I hope that we can work together to defend our future and for everyone to see that we are truly not helpless or hopeless. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mitch. I'm really probably going to cry by the end of this session. I am my mother's daughter. That was really powerful. Thank you. I also want to mention really briefly, in case it was not clear, as you look at the form and scroll through our blog post, West Virginia Council of Churches and the Evangelical Environmental Network have looked at the toolkit. It's adaptable to your group and to your faith community, but we have provided a toolkit for Christians. And so we hope that as you take this to your church or worship community, you may be able to pass that along. And again, we're happy to work with you. And as you sign up, you are signing up for a support network. So this will be an ongoing process where we shape this together and we learn from each other as we move forward. So this just isn't a thing where you sign up, you say you use the toolkit, and you never hear from us again. We are providing a community of support where we work towards this together. Okay, I'm going to pass it along to one of our next. Who do we have next? Robin, the floor is yours.
Hello. As Natalia said, my name is Robin Blakeman, and I am with West Virginia Interfaith Power and Light as a steering committee member, and I'm also the director of Energy Efficient West Virginia. And I'm kind of wearing both hats for this presentation because I want to talk about what's essentially the first page in the general toolkit, which West Virginia Interfaith Power and Light is in the process of our steering committee members evaluating and likely supporting that in terms of adding our logo to it. We believe in sustainability, and we believe that sustainability requires some bridge building in our communities. And that's why West Virginia Interfaith Power and Light is an organization that works beyond the bounds of any individual church, any individual denomination, or faith community. We work with everyone who's interested in some type of creation care, and we find that we can find those communities in the Islamic communities within West Virginia, and the Jewish communities, and Buddhist communities, and many others, including Christian. My own faith home is in the Presbyterian Church USA, and I do some work there and with the United Church of Christ in my local town of Huntington. In terms of the toolkit, I think this is an amazing tool that will be applicable to so many communities. And I look forward to seeing it be dispersed and getting out there so that many communities can figure out their piece of the puzzle, because that's what it's going to take to turn around the problems that we're now facing because of climate change. My own community, Huntington, has had 2 major flood incidents in this past year. And by major, I mean property damage, both to Marshall University, which is located in Huntington, and to many homes, small businesses, and churches in the residential part of town too. These are not normal in Huntington. We have a flood wall to protect us from the Ohio River, but these are small stream or street flooding because of heavy rain events. So the situation is urgent. It's becoming our quote unquote new normal to face things like this. And it's simply not going to be sustainable in the future for these events to happen over and over again, instead of every 100 years or 500 years or whatever. These two events we've had in Huntington were considered 500-year type floods, and we had two in 1 year. So we have to act if we believe that there needs to be a livable and comfortable future for our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We have to act because we, adults in this day and time, have used a lot of the resources that contribute to climate change. And so we have various tools that we are promoting within West Virginia Interfaith Power and Light, including the Cool Congregations tools that Interfaith Power and Light, the national organization, has developed. I'm sure the Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light group also promotes those tools. I, in my work with Energy Efficient West Virginia, also am going around the state, and I'm speaking to you today from Wheeling instead of Huntington, because I'm here to promote energy efficiency in this part of the state, which is 3.5 hours driving time from my home in Huntington. Energy efficiency is the low-hanging fruit in terms of what churches can do, what individuals can do, what small businesses can do. And there's a lot of funding coming to the state and region to help with that. There's also a lot of funding for innovative developments in terms of solar, wind, et cetera. But we would like to add energy efficiency into the much more than wind and solar category, and for congregations to think about that. Interfaith Power and Light even offers prizes to faith communities who engage in those type of programs and processes. So, I'll leave it at that. I believe our outreach coordinator, Angie Iafrate, is also here. I'll give her a shout out if there's time at the end and anyone wants to hear more about the programs we're promoting in West Virginia now, she can share that.
Excellent. Thank you, Robin. That's great. Kathy.
Thank you, Natalia, and thank you to our previous speakers. What a wonderful opportunity to work with a diverse and interesting, well-informed, visionary-oriented group of people. I'm here today as Development Associate with Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light, or PA-IPL, and our board president, Nathan Martin, is with me as well. So I think Nathan's going to want to share a few thoughts with you as well. I will share my slides quickly. Bear with me for one moment while I make that possible. There we go. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Our mission as Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light is very similar to the mission of West Virginia Power and Light and our previous speakers from different faiths. We, like West Virginia Power and Light, attempt to inspire and mobilize people of faith and conscience to take bold and just action on climate change, particularly climate justice, from an ethical and moral perspective. So we welcome into our group any person of any faith, any organization of any faith. I always say we actually even have a few atheists who are members and attend meetings regularly because they believe in attacking climate justice from an ethical and moral perspective, even though they're not faith-oriented. But we have everyone from atheists to Zen Buddhists, and everyone in between. And this is really our mission. And the reason that we feel our mission is so important is that our present circumstances demand action. We're all witnessing the loss of nature, the threat to our environment, and the spread of human suffering. And our sacred texts and moral values require us to protect creation and pursue justice. Our action can engender hope and motivate change in personal and community behavior and in public policy. We do this in a number of ways. We take part in sustained nonpartisan advocacy and policy. We work towards establishment of policies that alleviate the effects of climate justice and promote renewable energy and energy storage. We hold an annual advocacy bike and hike, monthly advocacy meetings or policy meetings, and monthly advocacy meetings with one of our partners, the Jewish Earth Alliance, or JEA. We also host an annual conference, which helps us to extend our advocacy reach and educate our constituents. We have our own congregational conservation toolkit, but we look forward to working with ReImagine Appalachia's Faith in Action toolkit as well. We conduct quite a bit of work in the creation care realm through habitat restoration, environmental stewardship, and the promotion of environmental education in the areas of energy, water, and waste conservation and weatherization. So we hope to be able to help West Virginia in that regard. We actually have some educational programs planned, which might be beneficial to you and your stakeholder group. And we work quite a bit on local chapter organizing and projects to further conservation, creation care, and advocacy work. So we really enjoy reaching out to small groups or small congregations to large congregations in order to find funding for their projects, which we can help them administer or simply be a pass-through organization for their funding. Last night, we hosted a lively spiritual care session, which I found particularly beneficial. This theme was on environmental justice, following Joanna Macy's Spiral of Hope, or Active Spiral. And we provide trainings and resources on spiritual care, creation care, and advocacy work. Oops, sorry there. We're expanding our work considerably in 2022 thanks to funding we have received from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, and we'd love to work with you on expanding those projects after year one. One of our grants is called the Growing Greener Plus grant, and that's a 3-year grant which will have us really going out into every area, urban, suburban, and rural, to advance watershed protection and water conservation projects. We'll actually be helping the DEP meet the EPA requirements in the areas that are most impaired. These are called restoration priority areas. We're also working on 2 environmental education program grants, specifically with organizations in Philadelphia and the Southwest PA region or Pittsburgh region. We're working with Garfield Community Farm and Ballfield Farm in Pittsburgh, and we're working with the First United Methodist Church of Germantown, more affectionately known as FUMCOG, and hopefully the Juniata Park community in Philadelphia region. If we're successful with these environmental education programs, the state may extend those grants into 2 more years, which would allow us to expand our reach, take our educational show on the road, so to speak, and work with your organizations as well. And once we develop the educational program, we'll be able to deliver that virtually and in person. We prefer in person because we can break bread together, we can work together. We prefer to meet people where they are at a meeting or other organizational event that is already occurring, so that we're not asking them to join us at another meeting. So that can be after a worship service, that can be after a community meeting or a food distribution meeting, that can be after a farm work day. So we're working in that regard. We're also expanding our work in the advocacy area thanks to 2 grants, one from National IPL and one from the Climate Action Campaign, or CAC. This is particularly important as we roll up to the November election. We feel we have tremendous value as a nonpartisan advocacy group. We don't like to talk about things in terms of political party or conservative or liberal or progressive values. We like to talk about things in terms of faith values. And we feel that we have great potential to reach across political boundaries to encourage people of any faith to dig deeply into their hearts, souls, and minds and vote the way their creator would ask them to vote, or act the way their creator would ask them to act. And that's primarily to care for the earth and all living creatures thereon, as we've been so beautifully reminded by the film that we just saw from Mitch. It's really our job as people of faith to walk the walk, just not talk the talk. This is just a little bit of information on the meeting that we had last night in our spiritual training on the active hope spiral that Joanna Macy has made so popular. Last night's theme was environmental justice. We invite you to join us in the fall for our next quarterly session. I highly recommend these. I find great inspiration from them. And if Rabbi Nathan would like to say a few words, I welcome him to join me.
Thanks, Kathy. I think I just want to say happy to be here, and as a person of faith and connected deeply to Jewish tradition, it gives me so much power and energy to work with so many different faith communities, because we all are working towards the same thing. And I think, just echoing what the other speakers said, we have tremendous resource in faith communities to create positive change, and we are going to need all the tools we have for Appalachia and beyond to move our country in the right direction in a short amount of time. So happy to be here with you all.
Thank you all again.
Thank you. We have about 15 minutes left for any questions, but quickly before that, I want to recognize Heather Haar from the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania, and I'm going to give you a round of applause for your continued support in our partnership. Really appreciate everything that the League and you have spearheaded across Pennsylvania and being an inspiration to us. So I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, say a couple words.
I'm with the League of Women Voters of PA, and I'm a co-founder of the ReImagine project, working with ReImagine Beaver County and then expanding out to other communities. And I developed this tool along the way, and I'm glad that it's being used by more people. So it's a deeply satisfying to watch something that you've worked on be spread. And I really think this is a great group of people here, and I hope to see and be part of what comes next.
Thank you. Thank you. So glad you were able to make it today. And yeah, your work has just been so foundational to everything that we've been working on in the region. So thank you so much. All right, opening it up to questions. Does anybody have any questions? You can either, you can raise your hand using the reactions button on the bottom right. You can put your question in the chat. Heck, you could just unmute yourself at this point. Let's see. I will say this much. Those of you who have registered, again, I don't know how familiar folks are with ReImagine, but we are a coalition, and a lot of our work, if not most of our work, is done online. So we consistently have events around really interesting topics that would help you move forward in your work and potentially doing this in your community. Yeah, we're particularly focusing right now on manufacturing, on clean manufacturing, on broadband access, of course, this work, as well as putting people to work on green jobs, whether it's cleaning up orphan or plugging orphan wells, reclaiming abandoned mine lands, or building out trails for recreation. So we constantly have things happening that hopefully can inspire you. So yeah, do you think this is something that could be done in your community? What do you think? Honest answer. Oh, Mitch, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'd like to just make a comment is that the toolkit is outstanding. But I think what I would like to encourage people to do who are here today, as many of them are faith leaders or leaders of organizations, is help us to reach out to people in your community, and we'll train them how to use the toolkit. And maybe part of the next meeting we could do is really walk through that. And I know there are some terrific leaders here. The toolkit will work. I think it's been proven to work. And the different faith communities here have different other resources that could help individual people, whether you're evangelicals or mainline or people of different faith. There are other resources that all these groups bring to the table. And I would just suggest that let's talk this up in every community that people are engaged in. Talk to clergy people. And that's what I would really just urge people to do, is just to come back, talk to their community members, come back in a couple of weeks with them in this next meeting that we have to train them and get this ball rolling. Because reimagining Appalachia, reimagining all of it, is not going to happen without people. And I don't believe it's going to happen without the faith communities. So we really need to get that involved and together, and really to urge people to step up to the plate. And, you know, we can talk about values. We can talk about things that are important. And several of our communities have different values here, and that's okay. And that's why we have different resources to help those out. But the thing is, let's talk about it. Let's bring some people back, and we can really, really use your help of bringing people back to the next meeting, so we can get some communities, a group of churches, a group of faith communities together to really to put this into action. So thank you. And that's my altar call for the morning from us evangelicals. So come to the table and do it.
Yeah, I'd like to add a thought to that, which I think is really, really well said. ReImagine Appalachia had its summit at the early part of this year. And I think we all know, like, things have gotten incredibly divisive in our times. And so there's a real need to find common ground and our common humanity. There's we have a situation where there's a real lack of trust between different stakeholders. And a lot of folks at the summit felt like the faith community would be pivotal in being able to bring folks together to find that common ground and find that humanity. And so that's why we've been working closely with this amazing faith team that you heard from today to kick that to the next level. We don't have all the answers. We want to work with you and whoever you think you need to be brought into this conversation to figure out how do we get from where we are to where we need to go.
Thank you. I would just like to mention one quick thing. I see Kara mentioned in the chat that she is from the North Carolina Blue Ridge Mountain area and is part of the Creation Care movement in the Catholic Church. If you could spread our blog post and our Google form to your communities, that would be great. My spiritual home is within the Catholic Church myself. But also, if anybody else would like to promote their work or their groups, I could put it in the follow-up email to participants. You're more than welcome. Jeff.
So I think, sort of what I think the opportunity is that, you don't have to do this by yourself. This is sort of an opportunity for connection. And that's what, churches and congregations and faith communities, I think, really do well is to connect to one another. I can't think of his name, but I think it's Johann Haas, who once said, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. And I think, we've been addicted to so many things over so many years, energy, a particular lifestyle, and the way we've treated our fellow sisters and brothers, in terms of power. But we've got to, that addiction is killing us. Our oil addiction is killing us. Our consumer addiction is killing us. But there is a way out of addiction, and that's connection. And I think that's what, ReImagine Appalachia just offers so much, is that ability to connect across communities, across different states and across the region. And just really applaud the staff as well, because they have just been incredible in their work.
Thank you all. This is Kathy from PAIPL. I would like to invite everyone to our November annual conference, which will be coming up this fall. And that's a great way to work. We'll be dividing into regions. So we'll have a Southwest PA region, a Central PA region, a Philadelphia region, and a Northeast PA region. So we will have a keynote speaker that will address all of us. And then we hope to meet in person in those different regions. But depending on the pandemic climate, we may have to be virtual all across the state. But we would definitely invite you to be part of that educational experience and spiritual experience. Last November 2021 was my first annual conference, and I really received great benefit from it. I'm seeing in the chat that there's quite a lot of texts about hope, and this is something that I agree we need to keep in the back of our minds, in the front of our minds, and all over our bodies, is that we can't lose that hope. One of my mentors, Patty DeMarco, always states that we must approach everything from a positive direction, from a positive point of view. If we're asking people to eliminate something from their lives, we have to have a positive replacement for that. If we want them to change behavior, we have to have a positive reinforcement for new behavior. And I hope I'm not putting Rabbi Nathan on the spot by asking him to talk a little bit about hope, because he wrote an essay recently for a publication, a Jewish publication, which I found to be particularly hopeful. If he's still on the call, I wonder if
well, I tell you what, I know our time is short, but thanks, Kathy. I'm happy to share a link to that essay for folks, just to be used as available as a resource. I'll put that in the chat.
That would be wonderful. I also put my email in the chat. I know that not everyone is well-versed in Google and all that good stuff. So my email is local, the word local, at reimagineappalachia.org. So feel free to email me with any further questions. I will send a follow-up email. So if there's actually anything you want me to include in the follow-up email to all y'all, or Allians guys, or us Pittsburghers, yeah, email me. And for our presenters, feel free to email me your presentations if you'd like, and I will also include them in the follow-up email to participants. Okay, we have 3 minutes. Any final questions? Any final words? Who wants to carry us out?
Really appreciate this. Thanks so much for doing this work. And I really agree that often it is the churches that are the last institution standing in struggling communities, and it's an important responsibility and role and call for us.
Absolutely. And yes, just to also reiterate, we're hoping, crossing our fingers, praying for a July 7th follow-up. So 2 weeks from today, we'd like to have like a little invite-only group so we can really talk about the nuts and bolts of how we'd like to carry this out. And we want this to also be shaped by you all. So yeah. All right. Well, with 1 minute to go, I will say thank you. Thank you all so much for joining.